It was a weekend that changed the landscape of the competition quite seriously. And for the first time since round 2, I think, I thought I'd get in and do a little bit of a weekend wrap of what overall happened. Anyway, and talk about changing the weekend up. The first game with exactly a reason for that. Sydney v Fremantle. Now, going into this game, like the general summarization and the general feel throughout the whole competition was Sydney are almost an impossible matchup. But they only had one loss this stage, and it was to Richmond. And it was just on paper so hard to see how anyone would ultimately beat Sydney in this season. But throughout these games, Sydney had been getting off to slow starts, is the thing. Just letting the other team in for a little bit of a jump start as the game went on. And you thought that but they were still coming back into the game and still making it a pretty strong game, so you thought it wasn't any worry. But then the game against Freo happened. Freo were just phenomenal with their midfield use, their defensive transition, and I thought their defenders, even without Alex Pearce, did just a phenomenal job to disrupt them, and they took a sizable lead into quarter time, and then into three-quarter time, where ultimately Sydney came home with a massive charge at the end of that fourth quarter, and you just thought, yes, Sydney will win this one here, but they hung on, but not without drama in the end. Logan McDonald unfortunately missing a shot after the siren that would have either tied or won the game. Completely sprayed it out of the ball. It's a hard feeling, and condolences to him. But overall, that allowed Freo to just have easily their best win I've ever seen under Justin Longmuir. I cannot praise him enough for what he did in this game. Freo getting pretty good at beating teams that look unbeatable at one stage. They beat Melbourne in 2022 when they looked unbeatable, and now they've taken out Sydney in 2024. Just a little bit of a strong suit that Justin Longmuir and the Dockers are having, and I think after this win, you have to start considering them as a serious team. They're a really good team. Do not sleep on the Dockers. They are a really, really good team. And this season, this win was easily the best of the season for them. Next game was up in the Gold Coast, and it was Gold Coast versus Collingwood. And this game was, it was the biggest game, I think, in such a long time for the Gold Coast Suns in their history. We know about their perfect home record, but it was going to be put to the ultimate test against a legitimate contender in the Pies. And they stood right up to that challenge. Started off well, but then the second and third quarter, I think, just took full ascendancy of the game, full control of the game, via their manic pressure and handball game as well, which you could tell this was a Damien Hardwick plan, a Damien Hardwick team, via just how amazing they were handballing and how amazing their ball usage was, to the point where they got a 26-point lead. But this is Collingwood, so you knew that this fourth quarter was going to be a long one for the Suns, and to literally no one's surprise, in around about 8 minutes, the lead was 6, not 26. And it actually got to a point that with 7 minutes to go, Collingwood took the lead, as they always do. But the Suns again fought back with 2 crucial goals late by Ben Long and Noah Ainsworth to ultimately win the game and take their biggest win in the Damien Hardwick era. And it's a win that can do so much for them building confidence. Like really, like they're probably going to win the rest of their games at People's First for this season. They just have to now win an away game. They can win away games. They can start thinking about finals for the first time in their history, I reckon. We'll look on the radar for Collingwood, but ultimately I've still got them by top 3 in the seedings overall, but they'll be fine. Almost came back against the Suns, who were very hard to beat at home. They'll be fine. Next game was Geelong versus Essendon, and we were talking about how like narratives have changed so much, like with how Gold Coast like finally are starting to like prove their ascendancy and finally beat teams who just bullied them throughout all their history and finally take a stand. Well, speaking of taking a stand, this was the time for Essendon to finally take a stand in this season, and they could have easily have done that and just prove that like their overall like what they are building is sustainable, and this is the new Essendon by finally beating Geelong, who looked so vulnerable and so like shaky for the first time. But unfortunately they just could not take the opportunity, as like it was even throughout the first 2 quarters, but in the third quarter, Geelong just put the foot down. Geelong just got the ascendancy they need, the ascendancy, and just continued the narratives that Essendon is going to be troubled by. Now, I will say, I cannot talk about this game without addressing the umpiring in the third quarter. Now, I don't normally address umpiring here, but I have to address umpiring for this game. It was atrocious. Like, Geelong 100% got their momentum off gift-wrapped goals by the umpires. And it was, like, so annoying. Like, Essendon fans had all right to be angry by them. But I still feel like they had time to come back in the fourth quarter and maybe make a game of it in the fourth, but just couldn't. And yes, Geelong had momentum, but I feel like the umpiring is only 60% of the reason why they lost. It can't be the main reason. They still were slightly outplayed, and Geelong, even without the umpiring, still just looked like a far better team than what we've seen over the last few weeks. And despite the circumstances, you've got to hand it to them. And now they have a really strong match against the Hawks coming up next week. Now, at Allied Oval, it was expected. I think the Giants, with one of their best teams of the year, expected to just kind of do business with the Crows and kind of just go on their merry way and try and just continue their strengthen for a top 4. But instead, they wake up this morning and we are asking serious questions of the GWS Giants. Because Adelaide smoked them. I'll be real, with the Giants, I feel like they did the number 1 cardinal sin in football. They underestimated their opponent. Well and truly underestimated their opponent. And ultimately were led to pay the price for it, as the Crows, in particular of Isaac Rankine, just kind of swooped all over them, and with their manic forward pressure just were able to get so much easier goals. They tried to make a game of it late, but it's no cigar by the end. It's incredible by the Crows. This was easily their best performance of the year, and you just wonder, do they have a part to play in this season still? Is there potentially a part to play? But for the Giants, it's rough lookings, and for a team that I tipped to win the flag, it's clear I put the wrong. I picked the wrong Sydney team. I'll fully admit it. I picked the wrong Sydney team. As the Giants seriously need to look at themselves, as if they keep this up, they'll either miss the finals, or if they make it, they're gonna get humbled big time. Now on to the Sunday games, and I I'm not going to spend much time on this because we already streamed this. We already did I already did good high def review of it, talking on socials. Port Adelaide, St Kilda. Basic summary you need to know is that it was one of the worst games of the season, just horrible football all around. Port Adelaide won by 2 points. The boys got to say we did it for Kenny. Ken Hinkley got his saving win, and we all start wondering why Ross Lyon was back in the game with his defensive play style, and we all just ask more questions about St Kilda, who put in another stinker of a performance, even when Port Adelaide were begging them to win that game. Port ain't out of the woods yet. They got to beat the Western Bulldogs, but yeah. Speaking of the Bulldogs, I just realised I completely forgot them in the opening part of this video. They were actually playing alongside Sydney Fremantle. Yeah, I thought they did pretty well. Like, North Melbourne have been playing so much better over the last few weeks, but yeah, just couldn't really keep up with the Dogs, who I'll give credit. Like, Colton was right, but they've been slowly sneaking under the radar in terms of just consistent performances the last few weeks. They're in form. They're doing well. I'm happy for them, and they're doing well. On paper, I think they'll smash Port Adelaide this week. And yeah, they're just quietly going towards finals, doing their good business, and good coaching by Luke Beveridge. North Melbourne improved defensively and did make a game of it in the last quarter, but first 3 quarters, unfortunately, were not good enough. So yeah, Dogs get the win, but still a lot of stuff just like the last 2 games to be excited about the future if you're a North fan. At the MCG, we had Richmond versus Carlton, and look, the Tigers made a game of it for the second quarter. Like, it really looked like just like their matchup in round 2, where it was just like, oh yeah, Carlton are going to struggle here. For some reason, Richmond just know how to play against them and just know what the matchup looks like. But then the third quarter, and this is something Carlton have been doing so well in the second half, they just put the foot down. Patrick Cripps is strengthening his case for a Brownlow. Sam Walsh is a superstar. Like, so many of their players, Moons, Akers, obviously the big 2, Mackay and Curnow, just had so many good efforts, and it was like, in 5 minutes, the game was won with 5 goals in a row. And that's what the good sides do in 2024. They pin you down in 5 minutes, and that is what Carlton have done to so many teams this year and did to Richmond. Like, Richmond really tried their best. I think Adam Uze came in with a phenomenal plan to stop this Carlton team, but Carlton are just playing with a different kind of fire at the moment, and they just booted them in the third quarter. And it was just phenomenal to watch. They are my favourite team to watch at the moment, Carlton. Just absolutely phenomenal to see and phenomenal to watch. And yeah, they are just smoking. I'd love to be a Blues fan at the moment. They're playing so well. And finally, the last game in the West, we have Hawthorn versus West Coast. And overall, yeah, Hawks just kept flying. I called them the Fox Footy team, and once again, you watch this game on Fox Footy, you saw why they are such high property and just so fun to watch. Like, the Brat Pack was back at it, Ginnivan played well, Mabior Shaw was like quieting the crowd, Mabior Shaw was taking some strong marks, and yeah, guys like Watson and also got involved. Only problem is that Sicily might be out with it for the Geelong game, which how big that is for the Hawks season is a little bit of a problem. West Coast honestly were a little bit flattering. I thought they could have put up a little more of an effort, but like, I'd say it's more towards like how good Hawthorn were and how good they are playing, as West Coast have beaten Fremantle and Melbourne Optus this season. So you underestimate them there. They are not a bad team at all. And many teams have learned the wrath of them if they underestimate them. But Hawthorn are just flying at the moment, and all kudos to them as they got a phenomenal win. Overall, my takeaways from this round, which really did change everything, especially that Sydney Freo game, that changed so much of the competition, is Sydney are not, teams like Carlton are not that far behind Sydney, and the winner of the Geelong Hawthorn game next week is playing finals. So yeah.